Hey guys, we're live. Welcome to CoinFund Q&A. Very excited to have the Storj team, Sean Wilkinson, James Presswich, and John Quinn was here. I think he dropped off, but he might be back. Very excited to have you guys on. You guys are one of the pioneers of token sales, one of the first teams to ever do this. And now you're doing something even more exciting, which is moving your token from one platform to another, from Counterparty to Ethereum. And that's really quite a new topic and pretty unprecedented, and also undertaking a really challenging endeavor of doing a sale while you have a liquid asset trading on the market. So before we dive into all of that stuff, do you guys want to just introduce yourselves a little bit and introduce the project for anyone who might not be as familiar with it?
Yeah,
we'll kind of dive in.
to add on that is that we're definitely doing some new stuff here. We're one of the few projects that's still around from 2014, and most of that is we've kept flexible. And we work with the newest data possible, and we really have an awesome community that really helps us and supports us and works with us to be on the bleeding edge. Benson, founder, CEO, CTO, and mainly responsible for driving this vision and helping the community and understanding what they need and want, and pushing forward also on the technicals.
Cool. James and John, you wanna give us a little intro as well?
Sure. My name's James Presswich. I've been with Storj since late 2014. I'm COO, CFO. I do a lot of the organizational stuff. I wrote the current version of the white paper late last year. I work on HR, accounting, budgeting, finance, network architecture, product management, everything else basically.
I'm John Quinn. I'm a Chief Development Officer. I'm primarily responsible for capital formation, sales, marketing, customer success, most of the outward-facing functions.
So as you can see, we all wear a lot of hats. So what happens in the startup?
Awesome. Sean, do you want to give us just like a super quick intro to Storj for anyone who might not know what it is?
Yeah, so there's a lot of people in the space that are, for those who don't, we are a crowdsourced platform for data storage. We allow them to take their extra hard drive space and bandwidth, lease it to this network. And then on the other side of that, the Storj Labs helps provide tools and services to allow developers to build applications on top of that network and do that easily and quickly. This project and protocol is that it's more users control the keys. It's more performant because it's a peer-to-peer network versus a centralized network where you're bottlenecked by your connection to your local data center. It's a lot more durable because it's a distributed network versus a centralized network. There's no need to build out $600 million data centers. It's a lot cheaper as well. So those are kind of the main headline benefits of the network and an overview on a high level.
Sweet. Like, how do you see the decentralized storage opportunity? Like, there's a few projects in the space building out these kinds of networks. Like, do you see this long term as a consumer product that everyone is using? Do you see it as sort of the hidden backbone of a lot of the big applications that require storage, like YouTube or Dropbox or something like that?
I think there's a lot of surface area. If you look at cloud storage in general, it's like a $20 to $30 billion industry and growing and growing. I mean, no one says they need less cloud storage, please. So there's a lot of areas for a lot of different projects, in the space to tackle different portions, whether it's video streaming or backup or more, like you said, like Dropbox, kind of sync and share. There's a lot of things to do there. So a lot of people see like other people in the space working on decentralized storage as competitive, and we're completely the opposite. We're really excited for what they are going to build, just because again there's so much disruption Bitcoin and blockchain technology and Ethereum can bring to this existing industry, which has a lot of issues in terms of privacy, security of data, storing a lot of data costs you a lot of money, and these are all things using this really new technology that we have can solve a lot of issues. I always like to say, and store data is on a distributed and decentralized network, but we're storing this data in these centralized providers and centralized data centers. That's ends up being a lot of the pain points and where a lot of the issues around security and performance and pricing come out of. And once you distribute it and decentralize, a lot of those problems start to go away. So I think this will continue to be a powerful model to change the way a lot of people store data online, and some will be quite visible in terms of next generation Dropbox clients of sorts. Others will just not be that visible. You'll update an app, and instead of using Amazon S3 to store the data, they'll be using Storj. You're none the wiser, although the application seems a lot faster and the developer saved a lot of money.
So in the context of decentralized storage, you have this idea of tokens. Can you talk a little bit about, what role do tokens play, maybe in decentralized systems in general, but more specifically in decentralized storage systems, and why they're so critical to the operation of these systems?
Done right here. So there's always been a technical way to build out decentralized and distributed storage systems. You just look at early peer-to-peer networks, Napster, Kazaa. You look at BitTorrent. These are all things that allow you to store and transfer data. What's always been missing is that incentivization piece, right? If I store a super popular song or seed a super popular song on BitTorrent, and someone tries to download it, it'll happen, really quickly. It'll be available for me to get it in many places. The issue is when I want to go store a cat picture, per se. This is not going to work. Is because there's no incentive for people to store that cat picture. So that's where kind of the token comes in as a very important part to incentivize people to store that cat picture or any other data that you would like to store. And as we see with Ethereum and all the many other tokens, that's not only used in terms of incentivization, but in various components of the technology where you might have funding, or you might want to use a lot of tokens to essentially build up the network. You can't store data if there's no network, and there's no incentive for people to store data because there's no data. Then you can't get that balance. So it's kind of your chicken and egg problem. And so the token was a very important part of getting the storage network bootstrap from nothing, where we had to go in and provide tokens to farmers to get them up to build up the network so that we could have enough to store data. So there's a lot of components when we talk about tokens in terms of models to incentivize, models to build networks, models to fund development, models to incentivize community members to participate. And all of these models are quite new, and a lot of people in the space ourselves included, are learning now what models are best and building new models.
How do tokens incentivize users of your system? What does that mean? Incentives like carry, the implications of value. What is the interchange of value between users, the system, and the tokens?
Yeah, so kind of at a high level, the only way to incentivize users for this platform at scale is through cryptocurrency. So for example, if you store a cat picture on your hardware, on your computer, and you transferred it to one of my friends, that cat picture is a very small amount of data. I might only owe you 1,000th of a cent. And so I can't do like an ACH transfer for 1,000th of a cent here. But what I can do is I can use Storj coin to very quickly and efficiently incentivize you just to store that picture and transfer that picture. So that payment component is 90% of that. But I think as we grow and as we integrate with Ethereum, there might be some other components to that, like using as a bond in a smart contract.
Cool. So before we get to the Ethereum part, which is the real juicy part here, can you take us back to 2014, and tell us how you arrived at using Counterparty as the platform for your token, and what decisions led to that?
Yeah, so back in 2014, so kind of the original idea started at the Texas Bitcoin Hackathon early in 2014, and we were looking at various different models and technologies to build this out. Crowdfunding and token sales and crowd sales were kind of just beginning at that stage, and it looked like a really great model. In terms of the more traditional methods, it was really new. You look at, to tell a more traditional VC or angel about, I'm going to use this Bitcoin technology to build out decentralized network of storage, and they're like Bitcoin that's used for drugs and guns, right? And so the crowdfunding model was really the way to get a lot of these early projects out there. I think Ethereum is probably the best success case of that. And so we kind of started down this path, building out the technicals, building out the white paper, doing a crowd sale, but also looking at like the different platforms that were available. So in 2014, there's only 2 platforms to build tokens on. Mastercoin, which is now rebranded Omni, Counterparty, and then I guess there's a third option. You can just like build your own, but that wasn't kind of ideal. And so Omni, previously then Mastercoin and Counterparty, were pretty evenly matched, and they were the best platforms out there. And we did, a lot of analysis between the two, and really found that, and also a community vote as well, that Counterparty was the best solution there for us to build our token on, and it was the best and most growing platform at the time. Ethereum didn't exist at this time at all. Actually, if you look, our crowd sale happened the exact same time that the Ethereum crowd sale happened. I remember sitting with Vitalik in late 2014 and talking to him about it and putting into his crowd sale. So the platform that we're switching now to just like didn't exist. And so we took the view of what was the best platform for the time. And over time, we found that since Counterparty is on Bitcoin, there was a lot of issues with that. Long transaction times, high fees, these are things that like really didn't occur in 2014, but now in 2017, they're pretty big issues.
So Counterparty is built on the Bitcoin network underneath, right? So what can one expect to see in terms of the features of tokens on Counterparty? You mentioned transaction times, right? So you're talking 10-minute average block time, right?
Yeah, so we started in 2014 with 10-minute block times, which was acceptable. But then you came down to 2016, 17, where you're having these these transactions being backlogged in the Bitcoin blockchain, and so it was taking you'd send a transaction and take hours, in some cases days, to send. And that just wasn't acceptable for us in terms of usability to the platform. So we took a view that we needed to make a change so that our users could have a good experience and fast block times and minutes, not hours to days, and low transaction fees. And that solution, it was pretty obvious to us, was Ethereum.
Oh, I don't think we can hear you, James. No? Well, in any case, maybe John, I'd love to hear your take as someone who is responsible for capital formation in this company. At the same time, you guys are pioneering kind of new models of fundraising on top of tokens. And what is that experience of kind of going to more traditional investors and being we have this other asset that you can buy, which is not what you're used to? And I was just curious to hear what reactions did you get from investors? Was it difficult to sell? And what are some of the features of this kind of investment that are not available, in other asset classes that you might sell in this scenario?
Yeah, so I would make a distinction between our equity investors and our token holders. Our equity holders are, they've invested in our seed round. We've raised about $3 million from really a group of the willing. We kind of did a rolling close. We used a safe note, uncapped with a 20% discount. And we got some really great names in the cap table. Some folks from Google Ventures invested as angels, Techstars invested as angels. Not the organizations, but individuals that worked inside those companies. Some great CEOs as well in the tech and security space. And so that rolling close just finished up. And so that the company holds the majority of the tokens. And so as part of the token sale, we were seeking to basically get better balance in terms of what the company owns, what the community owns, and also to have more governance over the reserves of tokens. It's interesting. Our equity holders are actually going to participate in the transaction 3x their equity position. So we've already received $9 million in commitments from our equity holders, which I think is a huge point of validation and show of support to us. So, I think Joel Monegro at USV said, that the token price accelerates more quickly than the equity. And so, I think that, and also has improved liquidity. So I think that the fact that they know the insides, they know how the sausage is being made at the company, and that they're stepping up big time into the offering, I think is really a strong sign of support. So that's, we've also received some other interest from some large, whales in the token space. And so we think, we're kind of of a $30 million offering where more or less books are half covered. So I think that's a really great position to be in, and we really haven't started marketing yet. So I think that there's just a lot of support because we are one of the longest standing projects. We have been extremely transparent throughout the company's history. And you can look at our GitHub repository where we push code every other day. And I think people really appreciate the progress we've made towards solving some of the problems of distributed object storage. So we're kind of an open book, and I think that investors appreciate that, and they can see the progress, and that's being reflected both in the demand for the offering as well as on the storage coin price, which is gone up 30x since the initial offering.
Cool, thanks. So you touched upon an interesting point here, which is sort of the pre-allocation of the coins, and you guys are one of the first to come into the space, and at that time I think it was fairly common to have a very large pre-allocation. In the subsequent years, I would say like 2015, 2016, you kind of saw the opposite trend where projects started floating a lot more in sales and then holding a lot less back for the team. And because you started earlier, you kind of had that model carry into the present moment. Now, at the moment, I think that model is being kind of tested again with sales like Gnosis and others that are coming up, right? Where people are saying like, but hey, when you have this small pre-allocation and you're not analogous to kind of a more traditional startup situation, you actually disadvantage the team in potentially in various ways. And one of those ways could be like, if I sell all of my equity up front, then how am I ever going to raise money in multiple rounds down the road? And for some of these projects, that's okay. And then for other projects, it's like totally not okay. My example is always, ride sharing, right? Like anyone like Uber or Lyft would have to do kind of very strategic multiple rounds over time to grow with the market and to really be competitive. They must do that. That is a requirement. You can't do that with this tiny pre-allocation thing. So given that you are slightly, or maybe not so slightly, kind of off market to what's out there today, can you talk a little bit about, how you view that pre-allocation, how you view that, that relative fraction between you and the community and the company, and can you talk a little bit about how you think of governance of that pre-allocation, because that seems to be sort of the most important point here. Maybe we're okay with letting teams have that large pre-allocation as long as it's very transparent and properly governed.
Yeah, so you're exactly right. Is that kind of we started this in 2014. We've been around for quite a while, and there was a lot less precedence in terms of token sales and percent of the supply that teams have, or founders have, or projects have, or companies have for strategic supply. And that was one of the headline goals of this sale, is that we're using this as a mechanism to bring that closer to where the market is. The way we think of it is more of a two-step process. So one, directly in the mechanics of the sale, you have a burn mechanism, which we burn 1 token for every 1 token sold in the sale. That's one mechanic. The sale of the tokens, is another mechanic where we can trade. Having the community have a larger portion of the tokens, but then we get back some resources that we can use to really accelerate development and build out micropayments and federated bridges and all these things that are very, very, very useful to scaling out the technology and its success. The other component we're looking at more towards step 2 is in terms of more programmatic distribution of those tokens and/or a kind of neutral foundation outside of the company. But those two components that we need more time to figure out that structure and work with the community to see what's best there. I don't think anyone has really come up with a perfect model for that yet. I mean, we all know what happened to the DAO that was trying to go that route, and for whatever reasons that really didn't work out. So we really want to spend a lot more time thinking of what is that second step that is really good and can provide a lot of growth to the storage ecosystem. And so, in our part 2 plan that was just posted, we're locking up a large portion of those coins, so that kind of allows us to work a little bit more closely with the community to see where we go from here, to take that to the next step. So a lot of that was pretty helpful on your case, and the data that you guys provided around percentage allocation for strategics and for teams. So we're kind of trying to follow that guidance and trying to bring down the company into the kind of 20 to 25% range, which is more typical, based on the data that we've seen on many projects.
Yeah, I think a couple interesting things here is that you guys are very thoughtful about being an open source decentralized project, and I think you spend a lot of time speaking with your community, because they're extremely important to be transparent with them and to allow them to help you sort of grow the ecosystem. So I think that's something you spend a ton of time on. And when you think about what the value of a token may be, it's really embedded within the utilization and the growth of the marketplace you guys are creating. So maybe just kind of talk me through sort of how you came to some of these decisions, or sort of how you continue to use your community as a resource going forward, and that transparency as as an additional way of differentiating yourself to other projects out there.
I will tell a story first. Is the reason why we try to be as transparent and communicative as possible was actually something that we did in 2014 that was a bit of a mistake. Is in 2014 we were doing our first crowd sale, and we launched this in the morning. I got on a flight to go to a conference where we're kind of headlining this, and a lot of the questions went unanswered, and it just turned into an absolute nightmare. And so from that day forward, we've been focused on being as transparent as we can. When someone asks a question on Reddit or Twitter or chat, making sure they have like a response as quick as possible. And that's really worked out in spades for us, and it's really allowed us to solve a lot of issues early on and really work with our community. So we really love that model, and it's worked best for us. In terms of going forward, it's a balance. It's difficult because you have many people in the community that have different opinions and different points of view on where we think this should go. So
Do we lose Sean a little bit?
Looks like it's frozen on mine.
All right.
I'm good. I'm good.
Might have to.
Talking about the community, I think one of the things network, like the Airbnb for your disk drive, and so it's predicated that a large community of people would act as farmers. So the community is absolutely vital to our future progression as a company. And so I think Sean from day one or from 2014 after that experience has been super focused on the community. And I think going forward, because we're basically building out that is going to require a large number of farmers in order to provide the service levels that we're seeking to provide, that community outreach and that will continue to be a big focus of the company.
all right, can you guys hear me all right now?
Yep.
All right,
I mean,
awesome.
I think the fact that you do have the kind of allocations that you do today, and you don't have vesting on kind of the holdback of your supply, it really speaks to the fact, and at the same time, you've been around for 3 years, like speaks to the fact that you guys have been like really transparent with your community, and that they trust you, and that you know, you have an agreement with like them about, for example, what is the most number of tokens that you could liquidate in the course of a year. I believe you told me that was about 10 million, right? And you've stuck to that, right? So that's probably one of the main reasons why you can even be here today.
I think the other component to that is that you know, we've been working with our community, and they've really, you know, worked with us and trusted us, you know, to do what's right for the general ecosystem. But as part of the sale and going forward, we really want to raise the bar, not only for ourselves, but that other people that come along and try to do sales like these. The other component is that we're moving from Counterparty to Ethereum. And you know, in that migration, we are a newcomer. And so while we might have the trust of our community, in this new community, like we don't have that long and storied history. So you know, I think we're at a good point now, but I think we want to push ourselves to do, you know, better and better in terms of disclosure and transparency and governance, and these things are important, especially at the size that we're at and as we continue to grow, versus when, you know, the token was, you know, tiny little token and just an idea, maybe the stakes weren't as high, but they sure are now.
And Jake made the comment on, he mentioned, you know, ride sharing as an example of, you know, something that might require more proceeds to grow the network. And I think you guys, you know, sort of fall into a category of a question I like to ask of, how are you going to use sort of the money and the assets, you know, of the company to really kind of crack that chicken and egg problem and attack customer acquisition in a space where, you know, there's very little sort of business model or fees being assessed by, you know, Storj as a provider. You know, most of that value is to accrue to the token. So, you know, I think that you guys create, you know, there's ways that you guys are going to create kind of organic customer acquisition or strategic customer acquisition with your tokens. But maybe you can just talk a little bit about sort of some of those key performance indicators or ways that you can sort of really kind of take the, you know, utilization of this product, which is cheaper than, you know, Dropbox and a lot of competitors out there, but still needs to, you know, be sort of not advertised, but, you know, people need to find out and learn more about it.
Yeah, so I think that's you know, a very important part of kind of token usage is that we're disrupting a market here, and you have these very large players like you know, Amazon S3 or Google Cloud or Microsoft Azure, and there's a lot. You know, core component of the token sale is a lot of tools that we got to build, because they have, you know, 10, 11-year head start in terms of tools and integrations. The other part is more the economics of it, is that, you know, Dropbox has, you know, and these other providers have, you know, provide lots of free space. And that allows people to, you know, try out the platform and then convert into, you know, paying customers. And so if we can replicate the same things with the tokens, that could be really impactful for, you know, perhaps, you know, the network is underwriting some of those tokens to give someone, you know, 10 gigs of free space. The hope that with some percentage conversion rate, they'll convert to a paying user and bring kind of many multiples to the platform. So, you know, it's you know, that's a very open question now that as the, you know, we just launched the product on, you know, March 15th. We're beginning to learn kind of what those rates are and how we can use the tokens. And you know, for example, we have a very large integration coming up where we might have to kind of ring the bell and say, like, here farmers, like we need like as many farmers as we can, like we're offering bonuses and whatnot, because the network needs to be here for us to be able to support this integration. And so that's kind of what the both the sale and the strategic supply of tokens supply. And again, you see this model in places like Uber, right? If you're going to compete with traditional taxis, you can't do it on a tiny budget, right? You need to get the drivers there, and you need to get the network there, and you got to do all the legwork in terms of setting up that network, so that when that person pushes that button, they get that Uber right there. For our same model, when that person wants to store that data, the farmer is there, they're fast, they're performant, and there's a lot of work and resources that go into scaling that up to where it needs to be.
And I might jump in that the value of the token, or really of any token, is the future utility of that token. And so for us to create value, both from a shareholder perspective and from a token holder perspective, we have to grow our network considerably. And the way that we're going to do that, and the bulk of our use of proceeds, is going to be through channel partnerships that enable us to integrate with ecosystems that already have large numbers of developers that are storing, need to push-pull data. A good example of that is Heroku, which is a Salesforce.com company with which you can basically do a one-click implementation and store your data on Storj. And so that's over 1 million developers there. Sean alluded to a future integration, which we're really excited about, which is orders of magnitude larger than that, and with a brand name that everybody knows about. So to Sean's point, we may need to bootstrap our network to get the supply side, because on the demand side, we could very quickly be drinking out of a fire hose. And so, having some flexibility in terms of the reserves in order to be able to do that, but always with the intention of growing the network and creating a much more larger and more vibrant and sustainable ecosystem. So that continues to be the driving goal for us, and so that's how we'll be utilizing those tokens.
Sweet. All right, let's get into the good stuff, which is how do you migrate a counterparty token to the Ethereum platform, Sean?
Yeah, so the what we came down to is we wanted to make it as simple as possible. That's the whole point of why we migrated, is because people had a bad user experience, and everything we want to do, we want to make sure that the users have a good user experience. So as everyone knows, as we've talked about many times before, the conversion is this one-to-one. So no fancy math that anyone has to do there. You have 10,000 tokens now, you have 10,000 new tokens. The way that we've decided to go about that is a simple web application that will be on our website, that people can essentially just send their counterparty tokens and get their new ERC20 tokens and just be done. So they don't have to do any work in like importing the private key and doing like all these other things to the migration. Just make it as simple. So we were thinking about this for quite a while, and it was one of the suggestions that our friends at Shapeshift kind of came up with, and they have a really good user experience and compared to many other platforms. And so we really went with that as that should be the headline way that people should convert and migrate easily. The secondary component to that is more in the works. Is the obvious question is what happens 2 years down the line, 3 years down the line, when I found my Storj coin wallet, how do I migrate? And that web app might not be available. So we're looking at solutions to do that in the future that require 10 times more steps, but will allow people to convert in the future. But right now we're just going with the headline one that is quite easy and allows people to migrate with the least amount of effort. And then as we develop that secondary component, that'll be out in probably a few months later.
And what about with respect to the application? do you anticipate any kind of like service interruption as you go from one token to another?
Not necessarily because of the way that Storj is architected. It is a distributed network, but also the architecture of Storj is broken down into different microservices. So we kind of looked at the work required, and it's really just like changing a database validation to accept the Ethereum address public key instead of a Bitcoin one. And then there'll be a little bit of user effort. Maybe some of this we can automate, where you're just saying, hey, that was my old Bitcoin address. Here's my new Ethereum address. If there's anything, if there's any tokens earned in like the middle of this migration, to send them to my new address, and updating all the contracts as well. So again, in terms of user experience, we're just trying to make that as simple as possible. It'll require a little bit of user interaction, but we're talking in like a minute or two of interaction, rather than lots of other components. So the way that we've architected it out, there really shouldn't be any interruptions for farmers. Is that they'll receive the Counterparty token for now, and then we're going to switch over that system to the ERC20 token. Past the sale, people might get like one more payout in Counterparty, but they can still just migrate those tokens over. So just want to make it as seamless as possible, is what we're aiming for.
So, and as you migrate the token to Ethereum, so the obvious wins there, like shorter transaction time, potentially lower fees. And what are some of the other things that now being on Ethereum kind of enables in terms of your token supply and in terms of the application?
Yeah, so we're like halfway there in terms of like not paying insane, like we're paying like thousands of dollars for transactions fees, and was eating like 15% and 20% of payouts. But the other component that this really convinced us on the Ethereum part was, this platform, not only in terms of its broad use and adoption, so getting listed on more exchanges and more really robust wallets, and being able to interoperate with all these new Ethereum applications that need storage, their applications, right? It doesn't make sense for them to store it on Amazon S3. But there's also these like other newer components like micropayments that are extremely important for a long-term scalability. So really great guys like the guys working on Raiden was a very important part of our switch. That's a technology we need. And they are the farthest along and not blocked by SegWit. So it's really great to see that technology out there, and we'll definitely be the first one in the door on that one. I think the second component to that I want to add is there's some advanced features in terms of extra layers of decentralization and durability that we can do on the smart contracting side. One of our real headline goals that you can do now, but it requires a lot of work, and we want to continue to automate this, is service completely goes down on the Storj Lab side. You still access your data. Like it's still a distributed network, and so using kind of that smart contracting layer to make sure that persists and continues beyond us, and that's really important in like recent events. And you look at Amazon S3, going down and taking a quarter of the internet with it. It's not good. And so if we can design a system that the default tools just can get around that and deal with that, that's really important. And so Ethereum is one of the very important parts of that secondary layer to storage to make it really durable.
Cool, awesome. So now we can get to finally talking about the sale. What can you guys tell us about the sale? How much are you looking to raise? What is it for? And how's that going to work?
Yeah, so actually we just posted kind of the headline details of the sale on our blog. That's under Storj Migration Plan Part 2. Not the sexiest title, but it has all the core components. There's a couple of things that we can talk about, but I'll go over the headline points. Obviously this allows us to fund and accelerate the development of our tool and our ecosystems and marketing and all those components that will really grow storage over the short, long, and medium term to kind of migrate from Bitcoin to Ethereum, and to use this as a function to bring kind of the strategic holdings of storage more in line with the market expectations. So one of the components in there is, we're using kind of the industry standard, cap sale. This is something that, again, you guys advise us on, and this is something that, the market really wants. Some of the other complicated models didn't have this, and people, while they raised a lot of tokens, people weren't necessarily happy with the model. So we try to go with what was kind of the best and most fair model. The sale price is set at 50 cents per token. We wrestled with this one for a lot because we worked on a plan for the sale, and then the entire Ethereum ecosystem just lifted. That's outside of the Ethereum ecosystem. The entire Bitcoin blockchain Ethereum system just lifted. So we were originally looking pricing of 22 cents per token, and that was based on hard data of the price over time and what we thought was fair, and then the entire market moved. So there's a lot of wrestling and debate internally, and also talking to the community what was fair. So we kind of came out at a number that was kind of in between, but more towards what the community wanted to kind of get there. The other component to the sale is, again, the burn. Is that we wanted to really align incentives for the existing token holders and really listen to their wants and needs in terms of bringing the distribution closer to market. And so we have that kind of, for every one token we sell in the sale, we also burn one token. And that covers kind of the high level detail for the sale. Obviously, we talked about the migration, which is kind of that one-to-one thing, but I highly encourage people to read the official blog post on that gets into more specific numbers.
Yeah, maybe you could just spend a little bit of time talking about the sort of buy and burn concept that you just mentioned is going to have a live market for old storage coins and the counterparty asset, and then why you're trying to maximize participation in your sale. And I think that from the examples we've seen beforehand, it sort of has worked out to varying degrees, but I think people would rather new capital be contributed to the company's storage to really be able to grow the ecosystem versus to buy storage in the secondary market. So I know you guys spent a ton of time really diving into how to execute on a sale model in a 24/7 market environment, which is it doesn't really happen anywhere else.
It's so, switching the train from one track to another track. Several 100-ton train that's moving at 60 miles an hour. It's very difficult, but we've done our best to kind of listen to the input from various experts in the community and our own thoughts to kind of straddle that line and make it as fair as possible. And like you said, we're trying to optimize for fairness, but also kind of the sale, because the sale allows us to get the resources to really build out storage in the ecosystem, and that's good for everyone. So, but like you said, there is this existing market. So there's a lot of furious debate on how to balance that. But I think the model that we've chosen, it is the best way to do that. We can dive more into that if you like. But yeah, it was definitely a lot of work to come to that, final determination. A lot of models were considered to come to that determination.
Just in terms of some scheduling, so we'll be putting out a term sheet, I think by tomorrow morning, which will have all the details of the sale included. And then the disclosure document, which we've really made an effort to make this the most transparent disclosure document in the history of ICOs, using Perkins Coie as counsel, Arthur Anderson as our accounting. So we're really going to try to lay it all out to create the opportunity for people to take a hard look at what's on offer. And then, so then May 19th, books open, and then they close June 19th. In the interim, we'll be participating at the Token Summit, as well as Consensus, as well as Ethereum Summit. So looking forward to seeing a lot of the folks that are on this call and talking to them in person there.
It's going to be a very exciting month. On those conferences and your sale announcement. So
Absolutely.
That reminds me of the old 2014 days with the conference madness. Conference.
All right, awesome, guys. Well, this has been like super great to dive into all the details here. Is there anything that you would like to say to the audience, or maybe even prospective crypto investors ahead of the sale before we go?
I guess the first thing I'd just like to thank. Give me a little feedback there. Can you mute Jake?
I'm sorry.
Awesome. I'd just like to thank our community for really helping us and being with us. We couldn't do that without them, and many of the people, including you guys, that helped us kind of wrestle these hard problems to get where we are. I think the most important part is that I encourage people to try out the platform and tools. And the other thing is, again, we're really pushing for openness and fairness and transparency. And so right after this, I'll be on the chat most of the day, just talking to our community and answering their questions. And for people who want to learn more or just have more questions, just jump on there. I just encourage people to participate, ask questions, get involved, because that's what we love, and that's what really gets us the feedback and the data that we need to make good decisions. In a vacuum, nothing good happens. But when we really talk and discuss and debate with our community and prospective participants that have technical questions or structured questions, that really helps us along, and it really helps us in terms of, this is a general question a lot of people are asking. Perhaps we should write an entire blog post about it. So that's where you see some of the more recent blog posts are just like, here's like where we're going, here's like a specific component of storage that's like really important. So I just really encourage people to get involved, be active, talk with us. We love it.
It's a very, very exciting update, and thanks for taking the time, here.
One comment in closing, that this token sale is kind of a watershed moment for the company, in as much as we're seeking to disrupt a $25 to $30 billion industry, and so everyone that participates in that can help us realize that vision, and the distributed network effects of having multiple token owners around the world is really going to help us expand on a global basis. And we very much appreciate your support, both as farmers, token holders, and just participants of the ecosystem as we realize our vision.
Yeah, and generally, been pretty positive in terms of messaging, but centralized, unsecure, really expensive cloud storage just doesn't need to exist. And so we really love everyone's participation and support on making cloud storage, which we all depend on, where it needs to be. And so, that's part of the vision from day one is, and the reason I started this project is I just was not happy with the traditional cloud storage, and it wasn't in, the mindset and the user focus and control that it needed to be to build out all these cool things we want to build out. So just a little part there on vision and what we want to do and really disrupt the traditional industry.
That's awesome, guys, and thank you also for picking some like really hard problems to solve, such as moving to a different platform while having liquid assets. I have to say it was just thinking through that problem was probably one of the most challenging and interesting, right, problems that come across our desk. Just to think about how all the pricing works and how to set the pricing in the first place. So really enjoyed that, and good luck with your sale, and good luck with your endeavors in the decentralized storage space. Thank you very much for speaking with us today, and for anyone listening, come check out the terms that the migration plan part 2 that Sean posted on the Storj blog to get more details on this matter. All right, thank you guys.